And we're here live from Rialto, California. I, Mark Flores, give you Retro Collecting 101. Tonight's topic, cheap hacks to increase your collection without breaking the bank. And here's your host, me, Mark Flores. Gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Retro Collecting 101. I am your host, Mark Flores. Guys, there's a topic that I've been wanting to discuss for a long time, and I needed to actually get a little more clarification, a little bit more information, but now I do feel comfortable actually giving you this topic tonight for Retro Collecting 101. Cheap hacks to increase your collection without breaking the bank. This is very important for retro collectors out there right now that are trying to get in the game without paying the top dollar for stuff. The general consensus of retro collectors is that you're either in two type of groups. You're in Group A, whether the Group A basically consists of everyone that's trying to get deals on the cheap. You have your thrifters. There's people out there just trying to game hunt, trying to catch people slipping on Craigslist and whatnot. And then Group B actually gets into the collecting and doesn't mind paying the extra top dollar because their extra income that they makes up for it, and that they're able to actually buy these items without breaking their bank because they have that set income. First and foremost, guys, I want to let you know that Retro Collecting 101 is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swapper via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share Retro Collecting 101 or my wrestling podcast, the Paper Review podcast, or even my current events podcast, the Mark and Andre Show, where we talk about current events, entertainment, and film, and in a very hilarious manner, by the way. If you share any which one of those episodes, you'll get 10% off towards your retro game purchase at Game Swappers. Or if you're in the mood for actually trading in some of the retro games, like if you have a few Super Nintendos lying around, be sure to hit up Game Swappers in-store, and their in-store address is actually located on their Instagram. If you go in-store and trade in your games, you'll get an extra 10% more towards your trade-ins, once again, if you mention any of my 3 podcasts. Anyway, guys, I wanted to actually get to this topic tonight at hand. We are in this hobby of ours, retro collecting, and we try very hard to get deals and hookups. Bottom line, if it's not a game we need urgently, we refuse to pay near or full retail price for these games. I myself kind of do fall into this rule, is that if I do find a cheap sports game, and if it's cheap and it's inexpensive, I'll definitely buy it. Like soccer games. I'll give soccer games an example. I myself do enjoy playing soccer games, and I like trying to find a great soccer game to play for the value of near about $5 to $10. But if I do find a nearly expensive soccer game that goes below the radar price of about $10 to $15, which might be about a quarter of the asking price for the game, I'll be sure to buy it. Because if it's not near the full retail price, I am under the impression that I'm getting a deal, which I am. But one thing to mention too is that if you have enough cash to do so, buy games, buy expensive games, buy complete in-box games that are expensive, go nuts. I myself can probably speak for a lot of people within the community, and I can't pay for those games at that alarming rate that games go for nowadays. I have to do what I can to make sure I get games to either store enough store credit at a local game store, or even have enough cash that I get from upselling all these other games I find at thrift stores. I could go that route too, because nowadays the rare games always go to the specialty shops because trade-ins are kind of like the key thing to do nowadays. I remember I was discussing a little earlier today with the manager at Game Swappers, and he was telling me that he's pretty much now the go-to guy for anyone that's trying to sell off entire collections of amiibos or even games. So it goes to show you that this market is still in the nature, and it's still in the time. We're still in the time of a buyer of a seller's market. The resellers can just buy out collections with the extra residual income that they have and sell them at an increase because they have the income to do so, the expendable income to actually do so. So in this episode, I'll tell you guys the way I've found games on the cheap. And, I just want to make sure that to educate you guys on these ends, make sure that if there's something that you guys missed, that I'll be sure to let you guys know what I know. Some of the techniques I'm going to mention on this show, I've done on an earlier podcast, but I feel that there isn't enough education on this topic. So to reiterate, I'm going to go for it on this episode. So tip number 1, you got to find lots at yard sales. And you got to find it anywhere, yard sales, Craigslist, to get the games that you want. What you're going to do is do this. You'll find a lot of games with the system, the controllers and everything, plus a few games. What you're going to do is that if you find a game in particular that's in that lot that you want, you get that game. And then either you, with the rest of the lot that you don't want, probably because you already have it or you're not interested in the rest of the lot, you can either hoard the rest to make sure that the premium on those prices go a little higher. So then when you actually turn it in for store credit, then you'll be able to see whether or not you're going to get any more money on that premium. And then you actually have the ability to sell the rest of the stuff off from the stuff that you don't want, and you have the ability also to sell the items individually, and it's the most profitable way that way, in my opinion, instead of holding the games, waiting for the profit to turn up, because it's always unpredictable. It's always an unpredictable market out there with retro games. So the piece of advice I could give to you is that if you find a lot of games that if you find a lot of games and within that lot there's a game that you like, you keep that game and you sell the rest of it off at make sure that your markup doesn't leave you in the red. Make sure you're actually profitable from this markup. So make sure to scale your lot and make sure you can actually get a profit off the lot that you're paying for. Example, if the lot that you see you're going to be paying $50 is actually worth $150, then it would be wise for you to buy it at that $50 rate. Tip number 2. You want to see if the complete in box price would be cheaper instead of buying everything all together. This little section goes out for all the people that wanted complete CIB collections. For those people that want to do that, if you have a game that you want to complete with the box and the manual, go look online and compare prices to see if buying it straight up complete is actually going to be a lot more cheaper than buying it with the box and manual. So if you end up buying it complete, you'll have an extra loose cart around that you could probably sell off for a markup as well. Maybe just doesn't matter what means you've sold that. I mean, you found that game at. So it's just an offer on that end to see where you can actually go from there. So that's another tip I can give you, because nowadays there's a lot of people trying to complete their collections with complete in box. I personally am not a fan myself. I do have a few box games myself, but now I've kind of grew out of that complete in box phase for me, just merely because it's a little out of my price range to try to complete all these games. But long story short, if you are that person that want to go for a complete in box collection, see if the manual is cheaper than buying the manual, the box, and the game. Try to pick apart all of them there. So, that's something I do recommend to people off the end there, just because some people do enjoy completing their collection in box. If you are selling games, and if you're trying to sell a lot of games that you're just trying to get rid of, and you're trying to see if someone's actually going to be in the interest of buying them, I go by rule number 3. This rule is called the Ted DiBiase rule. And if you guys don't know, Ted DiBiase was a wrestler in the late 80s to early 90s that wrestled under the moniker The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. He had a rule, and his gimmick was basically buying people out with no problem because he had all that extra money. The Ted DiBiase rule goes like this. Everyone has a price, and somebody's going to pay. So you, the person that are selling the game, your lot on Craigslist, Do not try to sell your lot. Don't try to sell your lot for $50 and then take a lowball offer of $30. Be patient. Have your post there. Have your lot at $50 and someone will buy it. Someone's always going to be in the market to buy your lot because there's always going to be a demand for the retro games now. A lot of people are having nostalgic regret, and they'll be able to with them being uneducated on the subject, they'll be able to, they'll have no fear of buying these games for whatever price that you're putting them at. I'm not saying to have your games at like this outrageous markup. Have it near or at retail value. Don't try to pull a fast one on anyone, but just have it at a reasonable price that A, you will profit off of, and B, that people that want to buy your collection will want to pay it. So just remember, don't ever don't ever slip below your asking price. The Ted DiBiase rule will always assure you that everyone has a price, someone's going to pay. Trust me. That goes to show you, that's going to go to show you, and it's going to work out on your end because you'll, instead of you ending up with quick cash at a $20 loss, you'll end up having the full retail, the full price instead of taking a low ball offer. That's going to always be beneficial for you guys at the end of the day because a lot of these games now that you guys want are going to be at a higher price. So let's see what we have here. Rule number 4, stay vigilant. Keep searching the thrift stores and keep your eyes on the price. I myself still go to thrift stores from time to time, still looking for something that I could either resell or still looking for something I can actually turn in for store credit or even make a quick buck on. The search never ends for me. I can say at this point I'm comfortable with the collection that I have. I still buy a few games here and there, but as of right now, I have most of the games that I've been looking for. But if you keep searching at thrift stores and keep your eyes on the prize, you'll end up probably finding a game. You might find a game that you'll end up either liking or finding a game that you thought was going to be too expensive for you to buy at the time and end up finding it for like $3.99 at a Goodwill or a thrift store. So, always stay vigilant. There's never time to, if you're on the way home from work and then you always pass by a thrift store, take the time to spend like the few minutes to look through there. You never know when you might find something of value that you can either mark up or what have you. That's what people mainly go to thrift stores for anyway. That's just common sense, and that's just the sad truth as well. Not a lot of people are in there to buy things, to buy clothes anymore. It's pretty much a treasure hunt in there nowadays. I see tons of people in there all the time looking for games, looking for this, that, and the other, like something that they can, to make profit off of. Self-explanatory. Those are the few rules that I have now. I mean, I wanted to keep this podcast fairly short just because these 4 rules are always going to these are quick rules, and these are rules that you need to actually know beforehand before you try to get too invested into the retro collecting scene without proper education. These techniques have helped me along the way to get the collection I have today. Hopefully they'll help you. But remember, guys, patience is something that needs to be instilled into the minds of you guys starting your collection either today or the last few years. You need to be patient now because this habit has reached a fever pitch. I can't stress that enough, and a lot of people can agree with me on that this hobby has grown. A lot of people have gained friends and stuff of the like along the way, but with more friends and more people getting invested into the collection, that means less common games to be had. That means less systems to be had. That means the supply is low, so now the demand is high. Classic supply and demand. So just be sure to, as I'll give a brief rundown of everything I just went through today, find lots on yard sales, pick the stuff that you want from that lot, and sell the rest off. Try to get your markup back. Make sure to profit off of it and never take a loss for it. See if the complete in-box price is going to be cheaper than picking apart the manual and the box and trying to buy those separately for the loose cart that you have. Maybe buying it complete in box is going to be cheaper so you can sell off that loose cart. The Ted DiBiase rule. Remember, guys, everyone has a price and someone's going to pay for that price. Never take a lowballed offer for the price that you've had, for the lot of games that you're selling for. The thing I could tell you is that someone's going to want to buy it now, especially since retro collecting is now a mainstream hobby. Make sure that you keep yourself assertive in your offers and what you're selling them for. Make sure to get 100% of what you offered for your lots or for whatever individual game you're selling. Everyone has a price. Someone's going to pay. Trust me. Keep searching keep searching at the thrift stores, guys, and make sure to keep your eyes on the price. You stay, that 3-minute trip that you spend looking at thrift stores, you could find something of value to you or of value to someone else that you can sell for however much you're getting it for. Maybe you could turn a $3.99 game that you find at Goodwill. Maybe you can turn it into a $50 game because you have the manual or because you have it complete now because you just found it. Make sure to keep those options in mind, guys. Just to let you know that this episode of Retro Collecting 101 has been brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You could come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share the Retro Collecting 101 podcast, my wrestling pay-per-review wrestling podcast, or if you do share the very hilarious Mark and Andre's show, a current events, movies, music, basically a whole mismatch of news, current events podcast that me and Andre do. It's very hilarious. If you share that one as well, you'll get 10% off towards your retro game purchases at Game Swappers. Or if you're in the interest of actually selling off your collection, you'll get 10% more towards your trade-ins when you trade in with Game Swappers. Simply share the podcast via any form of social media, and you got it right there. All right, guys. You guys have a good night. Make sure to stay safe. Stay vigilant out there. Thank you. Good night.